Hello. For our group project, we decided to talk about zoos. For this section, this will be the 4 zoos. We are group 1. The members in the group are Claire Ramos, Eden Areras, Carolyn Foster, and Krista Benson. This is Animals in Society, November 29th, 2023. Some background information. A zoo is a place where a variety of exotic animals are kept in captivity. The first recorded zoos were called menageries, which were a collection of wild animals kept by the wealthy as a sign of power. The earliest recorded menagerie was as early as 2500 BCE. The public zoo became popular in the 18th century during the Age of Enlightenment as the science extended into zoology. Scientists wanted to be able to study animals' behavior and anatomy, which required close observation that resembled their natural habitats. The first modern zoo was built in Paris, France in 1793 and was called the Ménagerie des Jardin des Plantes. Early zoos were like museums of living animals, where animals were kept in small display areas with as many species as space would allow. There are now several different types of zoos, such as urban, suburban, safari, game reserve, and petting zoos.
My name is Carolyn Boster, and I did the discussion of the ethical aspects of zoos and the cultural and sociological importance of zoos. So jump right in, start with conservation, rehabilitation, and education. The main role and functions of most modern zoos is to conserve endangered species, rehabilitate those in need, and educate the community. This is highlighted by Jennifer Gray in her doctoral dissertation out of the University of Melbourne in Australia, in her paper called An Ethical Defense of Modern Zoos, and that's found on page 24. Enclosures and feedings. Often this is a big ethical discussion, and the big questions are zoos providing safe spaces like homes for the wild animals? And are they being fed and nourished properly to what the animals actually need in their diet? And is that a resemblance of what they'd actually eat in the wild? Next is urban and suburban zoos versus safari and large-based conservatories. Which is more ethical? That's another big conversation in modern zoos, is small urban zoos like we find here in Fresno or San Francisco or even down in San Diego, where animals are in smaller enclosures. Is that more ethical than, let's say, a big conservatory? Or another highlighting thing is, like the picture shown on screen, is Disney's Animal Kingdom has a huge wildlife conservation attraction where lots of animals interact on big, large, vast enclosures. And so which one is better? And that's something that's highlighted in a National Geographic article, is should all zoos globally move to one type of exhibit versus another? And the last is fees and profits. What is the purpose of charging admissions? How much does it actually benefit animals? And the Association of Zoos and Aquariums talks a little bit about what the purpose of fees and profits are, and that'll get highlighted later in the presentation as well. Next is the cultural importance. what are we doing for awareness and education and nonprofits? So to kick it off, awareness, first and foremost, zoos and animal conservatories are founded to bring awareness to endangered species or wild animals, and at least in most modern zoos that have found some significance in how our world works. So this is important for people to just learn and become aware, and that's something that Gray highlights again in her doctoral discussion on page 24. Next is education is culturally important to show how animals interact with and live and thrive in this world, and that often brings some perspective to a lot of people. And this often even then goes towards pushing for harmony between nature and wildlife and humans, and Kansas State has a really good article on this. And last is it's just culturally showing how important nonprofits are. The Association of Zoos and Aquariums accredit zoos and aquariums. Up to 54% are nonprofit organizations, 35 are owned by public organizations, and only 11% are for-profit, which shows how wildly out of balance for-profit, or wildly few are for-profit and a lot are nonprofit and actually focused on the animals again. So it shows the true purpose of most zoos are for the animals and not for human benefit. And last is the sociological importance. So there's often most zoo workers and veterinarians and researchers find a sense of purpose and duty in their work and their life purpose of working and caring with animals. If you go to the Fresno Chaffee Zoo and see the zoo workers and the veterinarians working with these animals, it's their passion. They want to show how important these animals are and how they care for them, how they love on them, and it's just so much of what they're made for. Next is protection and conservation. The World Association of Zoos and Aquariums oversees how this is maintained and how rigorous they oversee how wild animals are kept in zoos. And this is something that National Geographic highlights in their article on zoos. And last is education. I highlighted this in cultural importance, but again, in sociological importance is how countless zoos have countless schools have curriculum built around wildlife, and visiting zoos often reinforces for students the vital importance of caring for wildlife and conservation and all that, and that's something that Gray highlights in her defense of modern zoos again. And then last, it allows for hands-on learning for students, which often is needed for some students to thrive in learning environments.
Hi, my name is Claire Ramos, and I will now be talking about the current events on zoos. Just quick, viewer discretion is advised, as some of the images I used may be a bit sensitive to some viewers. So, moving on. The Chester Zoo in England has been breeding their animals for 91 years, showing an increase in animal populations, saving tons of species from extinction. It's not often that not every zoo does this, but a good handful of zoos do breed. And the Chester Zoo in England has been known to be a breeding zoo. I don't exactly remember the name of their program that they have, but they breed the animals to save them from extinction. And it has been shown to show positive numbers in saving the animals. And then statistics show that zoos have been increasing the mental health and well-being of people, such as someone owning a dog or a cat. Their mental health increases and they get the exercise and everything. And by going to zoos and seeing all the animals and walking around and everything, you are working on your mental health and you just end up being happier. And then since the 1900s, have been working to combat the illnesses and threats animals have been facing. Zoos have been giving scientists tons of research in trying to figure out illnesses and defeat them to help the animals live longer, happier, healthier lives. And so none of them ever have to face any bad diseases and stuff. And so moving on to more current events on zoos, nearly 70 zoos have dosed all their animals, saving them from the SARS-CoV-2 virus, which is an insane amount of zoos to do that. They really have put in their efforts in taking care of their animals and saving them from viruses and illnesses and stuff. And then in 2022, a zoo helped keep a snow leopard and her newborn baby in good health. It is sometimes difficult when animals give birth to help keep their babies in good health. And so sometimes zoo workers have to work extra hard to keep the babies in good health so that they can keep the mother and the baby together. And then a couple zoos in 2021 have redesigned their habitats to make them much more home-like for the wilderness, and more wilderness-like for the animals, because before it used to just be a big bathroom for them, but they have worked towards making the habitats a much better place for the animals to be much happier and more comfortable in their enclosures. Now, why we are for zoos. Some zoos have breeding programs that are slowly saving many species from extinction, as I mentioned the Chester Zoo in England. They provide public education for people, teaching them about animals and how they could potentially survive in the wilderness, and learning how to care for themselves if they were to ever become face-to-face with animals, such as people that live in Australia. And then the animals in captivity receive daily health care from veterinarians, and they are protected from natural threats. And then many zoos' revenue goes towards funding for conservation projects helping to protect and support communities. And zoos have been known to be inspiring, bringing together groups that help wildlife conservation, and their stories of preserving unique animal species, taking good care of them. And there's even zoos that contribute data, helping scientists learn about animal behavior.
Hello, my name is Dean Rios, and this is knowledge about zoos. Zoos are classified as a place where animals live, where the public is able to see them. There are different types of zoos, ranging from aquariums that have sea life and marine animals to roadside zoos, which could house reptiles, aviary birds, and other animals like that. These zoos can be located in most parts of the world, allowing for greater access to people. Many of these zoos contain organizations that are aimed to help animals. This allows for them to hopefully live a better life in the future. Because many of these animals are there due to habitat loss or endangerment, which means their numbers have dwindled and they are unable to survive in the wild on their own. Our overall conclusion is that zoos are good and are necessary for the preservation of animals. Zoos care for the animals, and they tend to do a lot of good because the majority of them are non-profits, which means they work for the benefit of the animals. They don't necessarily do it to make a profit. And they also tend to want to spread awareness of the problems that the wildlife has and how to better treat animals in general. Zoos do a good job at keeping animals safe. They allow for animals that have been declared endangered to live a longer, more fruitful life, and hopefully one day make them on the non-endangered species list. They also help in giving animals treatments that are needed to be helpful and safely breed the animals, allowing them to repopulate quicker. In doing so, they have access to qualified veterinarians who know what they're doing, who know what they're studying, and just make it a safer environment for the animals. Zoos are also there not for the animals to educate humans. Zoos allow people of all ages to be educated about animals and about habitat conservation. The organizations allow for people to become more involved in animal conservation and habitat conservation so that they can advocate for change and so that animals have better living arrangements in the wild so they don't lose their habitats and have no place to live. and become extinct. Zoos also allow for scientists to collect data and use this data for research to benefit the animals themselves, whether it's for new medication or to learn stuff we had not known before about the animals.